Thank you, Charles. And thanks to the organisers for inviting me along to say a few words. I like Catherine's presentation, and I now know that I'm an extra welfarist. At least I think I am. You might want to go to lunch, and if you do, I've got just 5 words, really, to say to you. Who is going to pay? It's as simple as that. I want to look at the cost effectiveness of personalised medicines. I want to look at drug expenditure in this country. Do you know how much we spend on drugs? Do you? No? Yeah. Do you care? I want to show you some of the challenges that we have. And then I want to look at focusing on personalised medicines and give you a number of examples of the ones that we've seen recently and highlight the challenges from there. I then want to go into some examples, and I'll focus mainly on larotrectinib, which is a really exciting product, which has efficacy across a number of cancers, tumor-agnostic product, and Catherine is here today, and she did fantastic work on this. And then I want to go on to, as we go along, how do we manage this, or how do we try to manage it, should I say? And then the concept of health technology management. Some of you may not be aware of this, but this has been a focus of ours for the last 5 years, and you can expect to see more of it as we go along. So here's the drug expenditure in this country over the last 31 years. I compile this every year, and I know people suggest I need to get out more, but you'll see here that there were 2 main areas that we looked for 1999 to 2009. Real increase in drug expenditure here. This was due to the fact that we were prescribing more, it was driven by volume, and prescribing what we thought at the time were expensive medications. That was a time when statin therapy would cost you about €400 a year. And then we introduced cost containment measures around 2005, about 50 cost containment measures, would you believe, and we flattened the curve. And then we see the second rise, and this is different, and this is the real challenge for us. And this is driven mainly by the high-tech drug scheme. And this is, you're talking about drugs for cystic fibrosis, oncology, biologic agents for inflammatory bowel disease and rheumatological conditions. It's interesting that today, just 1% of prescription items account for 40% of expenditure. So we know where the money is going. So that's quite a small amount to give you a large expenditure. So the high-tech drug scheme has just gone over €1 billion a year. You see the trend. I'm going to come back to that near the end. So challenges. Well, we thought we'd seen it all with onasemnogene abeparvovec, that's Zolgensma to you. And this is for spinal muscular atrophy. There are other things than cancer, I should suggest. And so this was €2 million per patient per year. €2 million per patient per year. I approved another case of it, reimbursement last Friday. So we thought that was about as good as it gets. Well, we were wrong. So we now have a €3 million per patient per year drug, Limeldi, for metachromatic leukodystrophy. That's a lysosomal storage disorder, manifest by neurological symptoms and signs in the early years of life. €3 million. The really interesting thing is it doesn't come as any surprise to us. We've got used to drugs of this pricing magnitude. Many interesting publications in relation to personalised medicine, precision medicine, whatever you want. I looked at this one from Jameson and Longo in the New England Journal, but I was interested in this point here. Payers are concerned that new diagnostic tests and drugs will drive up healthcare expenditure, remain sceptical that these costs will be offset by the more selective use and fewer side effects. It may be the extra welfarist in me, but I tend to know what they're talking about there. So is this going to deliver? Here's a number of examples of personalised medicines that we've looked at over the past 12 months. Gilteritinib for AML, entrectinib, ROSI1 positive non-small cell lung cancer, larotrectinib, which I'll look at in more detail, Kaftrio for cystic fibrosis, nintedanib, trastuzumab emtansine for HER2 positive breast cancer, and patisiran for hereditary amyloidosis, stage 1 and 2 polyneuropathy. Patient numbers that will be treated by over 5 years is estimated to be 463. Look at the budget impact, 200 million euro. 200 million euro on 7 drugs over 5 years. That's 40.8 million euro a year. Put that in context. Do you know how much money we have next year for new drugs? Anyone? 18 million. 7 drugs, 40. Yeah, you get where I'm coming from. Perspective is a really important thing in all of this, and we're a health technology assessment agency, and these are the sort of things that keep us up at night, or maybe they don't, but these are the points that we're interested in. Are we making the best use of scarce healthcare resources? What about the health outcomes? What's the relationship between the health benefits and the associated costs of a therapy? What's the value? Is there any? What's the budget impact? Can we afford it? And crucially, as Catherine was saying, what's the opportunity cost? And I think you have to remember this. If we're going to put all this money into genomics and cancer drugs and so on and so forth, what about other areas? Be very clear. Someone is going to lose out here. So what about home help for the elderly? What about disability payments? What about, A&E? What about our healthcare professionals who are leaving? There are other areas. I've never signed more references for people going to Australia in my entire life. The opportunity cost. Let's look at value. Catherine's made my life much easier here. She explained about the quality. And I love this article by Milt Weinstein and Bill Stason. It just shows you that health economics is relatively new. And this is one of the initial papers from 1977 in the New England Journal. Some of us were actually going to medical school at that time. In any event, the threshold for cost effectiveness in this country is 45,000 euro per quality. So if the cost effectiveness is less than that, it will be reimbursed, and it will be reimbursed quickly. If it's more than that, it won't automatically be reimbursed. And then we have hard discussions to get into. Personalized medicines are expensive. Patisiran, the one I mentioned to you a while ago, 414,000 per patient per year. Larotrectinib, over 500,000. Gilteritinib, 142,000. They're frequently not remotely cost effective. So when we looked at Patisiran, 604,000 euro per quality. Remember that 45,000 per quality? So this isn't cost effective. So they're invariably associated with large budget impacts and significant opportunity costs. So there's a practical problem here for enthusiasts. What about larotrectinib? This is a very interesting product. As I say, it works across tumors if they've got the NTRK gene. As I said, Catherine did an awful lot of work in this. And larotrectinib inhibits the activation of the oncogenic TRK fusion proteins as a result of the NTRK gene fusions, resulting in its anti-tumor activity. In addition to cost, there's the data. How good is the data? So when we looked at this was, I'm taking some of the points that were raised during our assessment. Single-arm nature of clinical trials, small patient numbers, lack of unbiased comparative efficacy data, no accounting for heterogeneity. Is it generalizable in Ireland? Immature survival data. No evidence of prolonged survival. Might give us we get some idea of response. So we consider the comparative effectiveness of larotrectinib to be highly uncertain. The HSE drugs group highlighted the association between NTRK gene fusions and prognosis in terms of longer-term clinical outcomes, such as overall survival, have not yet been established. This doesn't sound like the basis for... It's not encouraging, maybe. So here's the vital statistics associated with this drug. Mean cost per patient per treatment course is over 500,000. The cost effectiveness is 163,864 per quality, well above the 45,000. The probability of cost effectiveness is 8%. And the 5-year budget impact is almost 35 million. So imagine you're in the Department of Health now, or imagine you're in the HSE. Would you pay for this? We do this in third med lectures all the time. Show of hands of who would pay for this. I partly guessed. Show of hands. A show of hands who would not pay for this at this price. Okay, right. And some of you are hedging your bets. Quite right, too. So we suggest that larotrectinib would not be recommended for reimbursement unless cost effectiveness can be improved in relation to existing treatments. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means let the negotiations begin. And this is what happens. The health technology assessment that we do, from that, we know the price that we need to get to ensure that we demonstrate value for money. We don't always get there, of course, but we try. And so you'll see, we know what the asking price is, but we know what the cost-effectiveness price is. Now, I'd love to show you the actual figures for this, but they'd sue me. So I won't do it, okay? But it's substantially less, as you can imagine. So that is one of the ways in which we try and counteract, if you like, these very high-priced products. And just to let you know the value of the health technology assessment process, the middle point there, it's estimated that the HTA process, complemented by the HSE commercial negotiations, will deliver in excess of 398 million in avoided costs over the next 5 years, and that's just for the drugs that were looked at in 2021. It also tells you about the pricing strategies of industry. Not all precision medicines are not cost-effective. Here's an example of a cost-effective one. I had to look hard for that. But here it is. At least there's one from what we looked at. And this is trastuzumab emtansine for HER2-positive breast cancer. Treatment costs, expensive, 71,000. Cost effectiveness, 14,000, well below the threshold. We're delighted. The probability of cost effectiveness, we're really getting excited now, it's 95%. But it has a big budget impact, 38 million euro. And that's also a separate dilemma, where something is cost effective, yet it has a big budget impact. But it is cost effective. And then we come to curative therapies, one-off curative therapies. The impact on a payer of an incorrect decision here is huge. You pay up front, and you wait and see what happens. Here's an example of Kymriah in CAR T-cell therapy. Again, another exciting development. I should say it's available for patients in Ireland. And we looked at it, for example, in diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. The data is limited. The numbers are small, less than 100, when we looked at it. We know that 50% of patients may not survive beyond 12 months. 70% may not survive to year 5. Yet we pay up front. How do you manage that? So, costs over 300,000. The ICER, again, well above the 45,000. The gross budget impact, almost 30 million euro. So how do you get around that? This takes us into risk sharing and pay for performance. This is a very nice paper by Adrian Towles and Liz Fennick. Catherine will be aware of them. And essentially, they were looking at how do you manage this? Normally, our cost-effectiveness approach is on the blue line there. If we continue to pay, we continue to get benefits. The red line is this curative therapy area. We know what the costs are. We're going to pay those. But what's the benefit? And so you see financial or risk-sharing schemes being introduced, and we've done this in this particular case, where we try and spread out the payments with the proviso that the manufacturer receives no further payment after treatment failure. In this case, it was overall survival. So we don't pay beyond that. So we stagger. Let's look at what it does to the cost effectiveness. So at the list price, the ICER is 191,000. The budget impact is 28.9 million. Let's look at what happens when you spread that over time period. Let's go down to the last one there. If you paid 20% every second year that the patient remained alive over 10 years, you get to 47,000 euro per quality, very near the cost-effectiveness threshold. Look at the budget impact. You reduce it substantially. So that's another mechanism that we use. We don't obviously get what we want in every negotiation, but that's kind of what you want to try and achieve. Health technology assessment, although beneficial, it's not sufficient to ensure the optimum use of scarce healthcare resources. And the reason is that just because a drug is deemed cost-effective, it doesn't mean to say that it will be used effectively. And this brings us to health technology management. And I can hear clinicians saying, what about my prescribing autonomy? And I usually respond saying, what about it? So what is health technology management? Health technology management, in the context of medicines, refers to measures put in place to ensure the safe, effective, and cost-effective use of medicines, controlling utilization and expenditure. Controlling utilization, unashamedly. In this country, over the past 5 years, health technology management has incorporated 25 medicines, and it's expanding literally as we speak. This is kind of how it works. In many cases, the prescriber has to be approved. You have to have an interest in the area. Otherwise, we won't approve you. You then have to submit an individual patient application for every single patient. We'll have a look at it, and we'll say whether we like it or not. And then you have to generate the prescription on the high-tech hub, and we've real visibility over what's going on. So you complete the patient application, you return it to us in the medicines management program, we'll look through it, and then we'll tell you that we won't recommend reimbursement, or we will recommend reimbursement, or we need more information from you. The days when people could put pen to paper and cost millions of euros are coming to an end. This is an example of a managed access program for patisiran. It's hard to see here, but just to say, we ask you to demonstrate that the diagnosis is there, and we ask you to submit the documentation to prove it. So we'll ask for the genetic test result. We'll ask you for the biopsy result. That's the way things are going, my friends. And this is the way things are going. At the current level of expenditure, I should say this is community drug scheme. Community drugs expenditure accounts for 85% of total expenditure. So if you want to convert it to total expenditure, you add another 15%. So what we're seeing here is, I suspect the drug expenditure will go to 4 billion euro in this country by 2027. That's not that long away. Considering that drug expenditure is increasing by about 150 million euro a year, I don't know if Norman was suggesting that the 3 million wasn't enough. I'm suggesting that the 18 million is probably not enough, but in any event. So I think this is the context in which you are working, because you're competing for resources all the time. And the drugs that you want to use as a result of your precision medicine are going to have to fit into this paradigm. So I'm going to conclude. Personalized medicines are invariably expensive and have a high budget impact. In many cases, there's a high degree of uncertainty in relation to the health outcomes, and cost effectiveness cannot be demonstrated. And I hear the calls for early access. There's only one problem about us giving early access to people. If the drug doesn't work or perform as we wanted it, have you ever tried taking away something you've already made available? For me, there appears little relationship between observed clinical outcomes and the price being charged for such therapies. The pricing model just doesn't stack up for me. We're just being charged too much for these products. And it's not just cancer, it's right across the board. We need fair pricing, and we need better value when it comes to all medicines, including personalized medicines. As prescribers, I don't know how many prescribers are in the room. Many prescribers in the room? No, you won't put up your hands anyway. But as prescribers, we have a role in creating the financial space to enable us to afford these personalized medicines. For example, we should be prescribing more cost effectively. How many people prescribe proton pump inhibitors? There'll be 10,000 prescription items for proton pump inhibitors today, and 10 more tomorrow. How many people prescribe Nexium? We love brands in Ireland. It's much more expensive than anything else. Simple things you can do. Enhanced biosimilar use when they become available. We've made a lot of progress in this area, and Humira was the one we were really after, along with etanercept. They cost over 200 million euro before we got working on this. We now have a market share of about 75%. But that still means that there's 25% of the originator product still being used. What's that all about? I don't understand. You cannot expect the financial space to be created if we're going to have this type of thing. The HSE will require a sustained focus on health technology assessment, price negotiation, and health technology management to enable us to keep pace. It's evident, to me at least, that much work needs to be done, but we all have a role in this if patients are going to get access to personalised medicines. Thank you very much.